This is what we're making today. It's well worth your time. You know, when I'm thinking of what is red chili, the first thing that comes to my mind, the very first thing is something really beefy, something with a lot of meat in it, especially compared with all of the other things. You want a good balance, you want the right flavor, but you want it to be really super meaty. And that's a good description for this recipe today. We have a lot of ingredients here. I have a very good balance of ingredients here. Now, something I'm very good at is red chili, or chili in general. And I have made several recipes, a lot of successful cooks, and you'll find that what I put together really works well. Now, I've had some interaction recently with some of my viewers who've asked me, would you please put out a red chili recipe that doesn't use alcohol? You see, all of these years I've always done red chili with bourbon, okay? I use a very light, smooth, mild bourbon, and I add that to my chili, and it gives it this unique woody flavor, a very rich flavor. But I understand not everybody can cook with alcohol, and not everybody can have it in their dishes around other people that may have sensitivities to it. So what we're going to do is make this beautiful dish without any of that going on. We're going to still have that good woody flavor. I've got a way of doing that. I've got some great ingredients here. This is going to be a very beefy, delicious, meaty chili, and I guarantee you, when it's finished, this recipe, you're going to be writing it down. It'll taste that good. You're going to want it. So, let's get over here. We'll take a look at the ingredients. We're going to get busy making us some red chili. Come on. The ingredients I have out here for this fantastic chili starts right back here. Beef, plenty of beef. This is a beef chuck, and it's perfect for this dish. Probably the most commonly used cut for making chili, and for good reason. The fat to meat ratio is perfect on it, and it has a great flavor. Also, with that, we're using some tomato paste, liquid smoke. Yeah, believe it or not, liquid smoke. And this right here is some lime juice. You won't really perceive the flavor of that lime juice in this chili, folks. You just won't. And this right back here is going to be in the background for the most part, too. The liquid smoke, I'm using it to replace some of the smoky flavors that I would normally get with bourbon if I had used bourbon in this. This will give more of a hickory smoke flavor to it, more like a barbecue kick. Very good. We have some onions here. These are some yellow onions, garlic, jalapeno, poblano chilies. Now, poblanos, these are great chilies. They're meaty and delicious. If you can't find them, a bell pepper will substitute, but frankly, look for these. They're worth finding, okay? They're very tasty. Also, in addition to those, we have back here our spices, and I'm using some cumin, cayenne, and paprika to spice this thing up and make it taste good. Folks, that's it right there. Let's get on with grinding our meat up and cutting the vegetables so we can make a fantastic chili. I have a chuck roast here. It's a very common cut of meat, all right? And if you'll notice, with one hand, what I'm doing here, I'm just pulling those muscles away from each other. You have a group of muscles here, folks, okay? So you got one here, 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 all right? You have kind of a joint muscle right here, but it's still going to come apart right along this line. And of course, this is the front leg, and you have muscles running in different directions because the animal has to move his leg in different directions, and each muscle does its own little job. All right, so when it comes to something like this, we're using some chuck here. Chuck is generally a very fat meat, okay? There's a lot of extra fat on it. So some of that, you know, if you wish to go ahead and just take some of that out, it's not going to hurt a thing. You know, if you were doing some hamburgers, I would say you were committing a mortal crime to remove something like that. However, when it comes to making chili, no, we don't need that much extra fat. Big blocks of fat like that aren't really going to be productive in a pot of chili, okay? Now, some of the fat I want because it does lend to a certain amount of flavor, but too much is just too much, okay? We don't need fat pooling on top of our chili after it's made. So what I like to do is to make strips that will easily fit down inside of the tube that leads to the grinder itself. There's an auger inside of the grinder that catches the meat and pushes it up through the end here, which is where there is a die and a cutting wheel that cuts the meat and then forces it through the die and gives you that ground meat. So once I have my meat all cut, I'll get my grinder set up. Now there's a couple of things you need to know if you've never used a grinder. That is, how tight this ring is against the grinding plate makes a difference. You don't want it forcing the meat past the die and around this ring, which can happen. So get it fairly firm, but don't tighten it with a nut wrench, you know, like this one has a wrench that goes on it. And it has a packing tool. The packing tool is great. It keeps your fingers out of this tube, all right? Well, let's go ahead and grind this stuff. And another word of caution, never point this thing at you. These things spit. They will take the meat juices and they'll spit it across, and so you don't want to be the one receiving that. Don't stand in front of it. There you have it. That's all there is to it for making this absolutely spectacular ground meat. And this is a texture and a flavor that beats any packaged grind you're going to find in any market. Folks, go ahead and do yourself this favor. Before I get into prepping out all of these chilies, there's a couple of things that we're going to go over in this preparation sequence, and some things I want to teach here. First off is you don't always have to remove the skin from chilies. If you're going to be making really super small dice, those skins probably aren't going to make any difference. But if you're going to be making large dice, like I'll be doing with these, the skin kind of gets in the way sometimes. You can remove it or you can leave it. The best way to remove skin from a chili is heat, okay? Plain and simple. A common method is put it under a broiler. Preheat the broiler, get it good and hot, put the chilies under that, and when they start to blister, turn them over. When they start to blister on the other side, put them in a plastic bag. Let them sweat for 15 minutes, then that skin will peel off. You can also place these directly over a flame. If you have a gas stove, just put them directly onto the burner in the flame itself, and that will blister and char off that skin beautifully. You can also use a gas grill to char off that skin. I'll be using my gas grill today. I'm just going to preheat it, put these on it, and once they blister and turn dark, I'll pull them in and we will cut them after that. It's a beautiful way of doing it. These I'm not going to remove the skin on this one because I want to cut them so small that, again, that skin just won't matter. We're also going to be removing the heat from our jalapenos, and I'll show you how to take a jalapeno and take the heat right out of it. I'm getting ready to cut my onions up. Before I do this, what I do to prep my onions, I leave the root end intact. I cut off the stem end, just cut it straight across, and I remove any outer layers that are too thin to cook well. A thin outer layer it just doesn't cook right, folks. And if you have one that's looks like it's full on one side but it's dry on the other, just take that layer out because it just won't cook that well. So prep them that way, and then we get on to how to dice these things. Recently, I had one of my viewers complain that it takes me too long to cut an onion. I explained to him what takes so long in my technique is teaching the technique, not in using it. That the use of the technique will speed you up when cutting an onion. And I want to show you the right way to dice out an onion, a very fast way. And, well, I really shouldn't say it's the right way, it's just one of the many. And what we're going to do, I want to start by taking off the top on both of these onions and getting any outer layers out of my way that may be a little bit on the dry side. So I simply take my knife, score the outer, and go at it. I have my onions with the outer layer removed. I had a little bit of a mistake there. Not a big deal. And so you see they're ready right now to cut, and I leave the root end intact only because it just makes cutting easier, and also because there's more of the juice that'll come out of this end than will come out of this end. It's just the way the thing grows, okay? So the thing of it is, we're going to acknowledge a perfect professional cut on this, then I have to teach it the right way. So that means you have to cut this way, you have to cut this way, and you have to cut this way. All right, that takes 3 directions of cuts to get perfect dice on any onion. It doesn't have to take a long time. So let me take the larger one. I want to set it aside. We'll take the smaller one, and I'll teach you how to do this with this one. And on the second one, I'll show you how fast it is if it's just done right. Okay, we first half the onion, and then we quarter the onion, just like this. All right. Once it's like this, it becomes very easy. All I have to do is make, with the tip of my knife, a downward cut. Here, here, here. And I can make the width of my dice whatever I want them to be. Once I've done that, to make the opposite cut, I simply take my onion, turn it sideways like this, and do the same thing again. Okay? That's super, super easy. The onion, if you look at it now, it is already diced up. Okay, all you got to do is make the cross cuts. The perfect shape and size of dice are already there because you sized them out that way. Okay, just that simple. So that is the method, the technique. And there. So we have very, very little waste, just the root end there. A beautifully, perfectly diced onion, and it didn't take but just a moment, even teaching it. So we move on. Let me move to the next thing, which is, if you're going to do this, let's hold the knife the right way. Let's be safe. If you're holding your knife back like this, it's kind of dangerous because these things can roll and turn on you, and then if it turns the wrong way and your hand's in the way, then it's a bad day. All right, so you want to keep a better condition of control on that knife, and that comes from pinching the blade, wrapping these other fingers around that handle, and that prevents the thing from turning, and it gives you ultimate control. It's much more comfortable to handle this way. Once you get used to this, it's great. All right, so learn that. Now, we do this one again. It's just a quick one, just so that you can see how it's done. Boom, boom. Make a couple of down cuts here. Now, we're ready to make our dice. It's just like super easy. Dicing an onion really, honestly, does not get easier than this, okay? So now, when it comes to how long does this really take when I'm not explaining how to do it? Okay, let's watch. Let's dice an onion. Get this out of my way. There we go. Now folks, the reason methods like this are taught to chefs is because they have to get their jobs done quickly, okay? And that is a fast technique. You've just seen it right there. It doesn't take squat to dice up an onion and to do a beautiful job of it if you really know what you're doing. So learn the technique, use that technique, and you've got the best way in the world of dicing onions right there. Now, these are in off of the grill and they're still quite hot. But once you've got them blistered, simply pull that skin back. You see there? That's all this takes. And do that to all of your chilies. Now, don't worry if some little specks of black or water or left behind. A little bit isn't going to hurt anything. This is about doing two things. We've removed that skin from our way, but also we've given this chili a special new flavor. That charred poblano flavor is absolutely fantastic. My jalapenos, simple enough. When it comes to how to get the heat out of jalapeno, well, first off, let me explain. if you've ever had pickled jalapenos, you know these things can be awful hot. But when it comes to a fresh jalapeno, unlike the pickled ones that have the heat running throughout, a fresh jalapeno has 90 to 95% of its heat right here in this very center part. You see that core? Look what I'm doing to remove that. Simple spoon. That's it. Now I've taken out the majority of the heat from that, and I have just that wonderful chili flavor right there. Now if you're one of those that wants to leave this in, you can do it. The seeds in the center won't hurt anything, but it will heat the dish up. I want to say that right now. That part of it right there is going to heat your chili up. If you want just the flavor, go with just the green. So that is right there how to process out the jalapeno to get it ready for dicing. Now when it comes to the dice itself, let's get into that. Again, hold the knife the right way by pinching it. Curl the fingertips under when you're doing stuff like this, folks, and cut just little matchstick size cuts from that jalapeno. You know, it's a very narrow width, about a quarter, an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch is perfect. I'll just do that all the way down, and then I'll make my cross cuts. Same small, little bitty, tiny dice. Wasn't that simple? That's all there is to getting good quality jalapeno diced up. Very easy. I'm getting ready to process my garlic. I've still got that paper on the outside of it. There's a lot of different ways you can remove this. You can shake it in between bowls. You can just crush the garlic and then work the paper off of it. Something I kind of fell onto when I was a kid was this right here. Just take that garlic, flex it a little, and the paper will crackle and it'll come right off of your garlic. There we go. Looks like this. All right, that's all there is to that. So you see, very simple method. And the neat thing is, if you want to prepare a lot of these in advance and put them like in a plastic bag or whatever, you can do that and have your garlic ready at any time. Just keep it in your refrigerator. You got your fresh garlic cloves right there. So it's just, I think, a better technique. Really super easy. Whenever I mince garlic, the first thing I do is take each clove and crush it, okay? I do this quite on purpose, and that is to keep the thing from bobbing and rolling around when you're trying to cut it. It'll be doing that all the time, but if you crush it, it just kind of stays flat right there. All right. A couple of different ways that you can mince garlic if you want. There's different techniques, okay? One is just the flat-on chop. That works fine. There is the rocking chop, holding the knife the same way. This will do it pretty quickly, all right? And it's safe, all right? That's the neat thing about that technique, is you're pinching that blade and it's not going to go anywhere. There's another technique. It's a much older technique. It was one I learned from a French Canadian when I was a very young person, and that is this method. You put these fingers here on the bullnose edge of your knife, and turn that thumb under, keep it under at all times, right down here. Then we pull back on the handle a little bit and use a rocking motion up and down like this. Right? Simple enough, right? You get a good chopping action that way, and you get kind of a double chopping action if you get your garlic centered up on your knife right. Now the last thing I want to mention about doing this technique is the angle of the blade itself. It does make a difference. If you're cutting just straight up and down like this, then it's going to do fine. But I learned that if I tilt it just about 7, maybe 8 degrees, just like so, I get a much better, cleaner chop. It's much more efficient also in how it works. So I just learned a long time ago to do myself that favor. And there we go. And that's all there is to mincing garlic. And it's ready to go in the chili. So go ahead and just coarse dice those poblanos after you get them all skinned and get the crown and seeds removed. That is going to be just so delicious right there. Isn't that beautiful? I have everything measured out, cut, diced, and ready to go. Now this is my tutorial version on this recipe. And so on the tutorials I like to go into a little more depth. And here's what I'm going to tell you. First off, what we have here, having everything all prepped and put into bowls, there's a term for this, a French term, and it is called mise en place. Okay, and that's just a short term that means everything in its place. This is done on purpose. You don't want your meat burning while you're trying to dice or mince or whatever. You want all of this done so you can focus on the cooking when it comes time to cook. It will speed your cooking up, and it'll also make your food way better because you can focus where your focus needs to be. All right, so give this method a try. Once you get used to it, you're absolutely going to love it. Professionals do this on purpose, okay? Not because they're trying to look fancy, because nobody sees them working. They're trying to be as efficient as possible. All right, I have my meat right down here in my pot. Now I want to start this on this front burner just because it's easier to video, but I want to move it to the middle burner because it's better for simmering. All right, now, and it's also a way hotter burner. When I'm starting this out, I get my meat in here first. Just that simple. Then go in with the onions, just like so, and with that jalapeno. Now, something I like to do is I'll put a little bit of olive oil over the top of this. Now, the reason I'm doing this is not for the meat so much, because there's plenty of fat in the meat. In the initial stages of cooking, I don't want any of my onions or peppers sticking, and so I just give them a little light coating of oil, and that helps in the early stages of cooking this. So mix those together and get on with cooking. Now what we're going to do here is I'm going to be cooking this until my onions look somewhat translucent. So when they go from this really white looking appearance right here to a very translucent appearance, that is when we're ready to start putting in everything else. All right, and that's when this turns itself from just a basic meat mixture this way into its chili base. So there we have it. Be patient with it now. It's just time to cook it and get it going. I have this cooked to the consistency I'm looking for. Look at this. My meat has been cooked throughout. The chilies are starting to get soft. The onions are looking translucent. They're no longer a nice bright white. So this is right where I want it for the next step. And the next step, very simple. We need to get our tomato paste in this and get it stirred in. Now, I like to use a spatula for this rather than a spoon, and I just find it a little bit easier. Because when it comes to work it into meat like this, it doesn't fight you as much as a spoon will, it seems like. And the reason I do this right here, I just work that tomato paste through there, and it allows it to take in the moisture I'm about to put into this pot. So that's all it does, is it just evens it out a bit and makes it easier to get the liquids mixed into it. Now look at that. Nice, thick, pasty consistency. If you were making sloppy joes, folks, right there, you're halfway home. Isn't that beautiful looking? So for the next step, we need to thin this down a little bit. Now you can use water, or you can use what I'm going to use. Go with some beef broth. And what you want to do is just thin this to the consistency that you like your chili. And once you've done that, add about an extra cup. So you're going to be cooking that amount out as you simmer this thing down, okay? So right here, I'm getting very close to the consistency that I would like my chili to be. And I have used about 3 cups of liquid in this. I'm going to put in another 4th cup of liquid, and that'll be my simmer out liquid. And this is going to be so good. Look at that. It's already taking on the right look. So the next thing we want to do, let's get on with putting our spices down in this. Ingredients in here. Now that paprika that I just put in, that is a real important ingredient. It is pretty much the central flavor of a good chili. If you have a chili that you really like the flavor of, it's probably got a lot of paprika in it. I'm going to tell you that now. And the cayenne, as I mentioned before, it's a good flavor. Boy, it is spicy though. Now the garlic, I'll get it on in there. Now there's a couple of things that we're going to use here. First off, there's this. This is our liquid smoke. And that's going to give it that smoky, kind of a woody background. It won't be overwhelming because we didn't use too much of it. When you consider the size of the pot that I have going on here, there's a lot of material. And then this ingredient. This is lime juice. Believe it or not, you're not going to even taste the lime juice in this. However, the importance of the lime juice is high. The lime juice is going to bring flavors to the surface. That's what we call using acid to bring flavor to the surface, okay? You'll hear chefs say, oh, it needs acid. And that is because it's flat tasting, and it needs something to lift it up and give it better flavor. There we go. Let's go ahead and get our poblanos in here. Right now, it's just a matter of giving this some simmer time. All it needs is just bring it up to a simmer and give it plenty of time. Stir it about every 15 to 20 minutes. I've just turned off the burner. This has been simmering for about an hour and a half now. Now if you'll notice, you have an amount of oil that is sitting on top of this. If you wish to remove that, you can. Now if you'll notice what I'm doing here, I'm just letting it kind of glide off into my spoon. And that's one of the ways that you can remove that. Just gently lower a spoon until it rolls into it because it's floating on the surface. And do that several times and you'll have all of that removed. I'm going to say this. What you're looking at there, that on top, that oil, that is a combination of two things. Yes, what the fat rendered out, that's part of it. And also the oils from the tomato itself will sometimes leach out and you get that effect. You'll see that on marinaras when you're cooking them. It will stir in and it has a great deal of flavor. So your choice, you can remove it or just stir it on in. Looky there. Isn't that nice? Now we have a chili that's really good looking here, very hearty, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, that right there, beautiful. That is a hearty chili, folks. Very thick, robust, hearty chili. And that's the thing about a red chili. It needs to have a lot of flavor to it. It needs to have a lot of vegetables in it. That's what you're seeing here. It needs to be extremely beefy, like what you've seen me make right here. And afterwards, decorate it, okay? Let's put something on this to finish it off and really kind of give it that garnish that it deserves to have. Let's do that next. The quantity of everything that I've used today starts back here with the beef. I began with 3 pounds of beef chuck. I trimmed out a little bit of the weight, removing some of the fat, but for the most part, go 3 pounds. On the tomato paste over there, 12 ounces of that. And on these two, this lime juice and the liquid smoke there, that's 1/4 cup of each. Onions, right there I've got 2 medium onions, and that's generally about 1.5 pounds. And you're going to be using the same weight on these poblanos, about 1.5 pounds of the big chilies there. The jalapenos, 1/2 pound of these, and around 6 cloves of garlic. That would be a regular medium-sized clove. And that generally gives you a couple of tablespoons of minced garlic. Works well. Paprika, 1/4 cup. Cayenne, 1 tablespoon. Cumin, 1 tablespoon. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've got acid reflux or heartburn problems or anything, go ahead and take the cayenne out. This really kicks it up. And I'll say this, it is also fiery hot. This is the heat of the chili on this red chili. Where the paprika is a rather mild spice, that cayenne is going to bump up the flavor when it comes to heat. So be cautious with it. Remember, you can always add it, but you can't take it out. That's the recipe. Let's take a look at the finished product and get busy eating this chili. Oh, yeah. Now, nothing like a little dollop of sour cream. There we go. Something else I like, and I think it just works well with chili, and that is just a bit, not a whole lot, just a bit of some green onion. Who doesn't like some cheese in and with their chili? It's fantastic. And something just to keep it looking really special and pretty. There we go. That is a fine looking bowl of chili. A little bit of work. Well, a little patience, a little work can be well rewarded. Oh man. Hey, this isn't the kind of chili that's going to overwhelm you with spice or be too peppery on the palate. It's not that way at all. It's actually a fairly mild chili, a very good flavor, very beefy. The smokiness of that liquid smoke comes through just perfect. But it's not in the forefront, it's not in the front of the flavors. You get the beef up front. You get the flavor of those other spices, that paprika up front. And that's what really stands out. It's a very good tasting chili, has a very soft chew to it on the meat because that was fresh grind of a choice cut, so you get very good quality. Folks, it's a great recipe. Please enjoy it. If you would, take a look in the description box. You're going to see the recipe link right down there. You're going to see a link to my website. That's where I sell my recipes. And also you're going to see a link to Texas Cooking Today there. And there's an explanation of why I have 2 different kinds of shows for every recipe. So if you would, take a look at that. I'd appreciate it. And please enjoy your chili. And folks, you have a good day. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah. I wanted to speak to you for just a moment about my recipes. Now, I put out my recipes, okay? They're on my website. Now, I don't put out your average everyday recipe. You know, I had somebody comment to me recently. He said, why would I do that when they're available everywhere for free? There's a little difference. Those that are for free, and I've printed them out, you have too, little tiny thing in the corner of the piece of paper that's covered with ads most of the time, and then it's not very descriptive. Not mine. Mine are worth having. Okay, so when you get one of mine, it's designed to be printed in such a way that it can be put into like a 3-ring binder. Look at this. Look at the quality on it. Look at how clear this is. The imagery is beautiful. So they can be printed, and this is the way I've designed mine, is so that it can be printed back to back. And then you end up with, you know, a complete recipe that works in a book. And it comes out absolutely beautiful. Pictures that depict everything that you need to do in the recipe. Now, not all of them are exactly that way, but a lot of them are, and I'm getting more and more done this way. And I'm putting a hard push towards good quality recipes that give better instructions than everybody else's. And that's the reason I do them this way. These are designed to have holes punched in them. Let me pull this up and do this with it. Look, 3-ring binder, boom, punch holes in it, you have it right there. Everything's all available for you, okay? So, pardon me, I didn't mean to hit the mic. Anyway, really cool idea. Great way to do your recipes. Instead of having to buy a book of 50 recipes to get 10, you just pay for the 10 recipes, save a whole lot of money, and you got a better idea for how to keep your recipes. Thanks for watching. Please enjoy what I provide. Check out Texas Cooking Today. There's a lot, I mean a lot of recipes there. And if you would, take a look in the description box down underneath me here, and you'll find the links to my website, to Texas Cooking Today, to the stuff that I do, and how to keep up with me and to find out a little bit more. Thank you very much. You have a good day.